Welcome to the Live From Rest podcast, episode 15. I'm Steve Smith, your host and the author of the Live From Rest app. Each week in this podcast, we take time to explore the ancient art of being. We host conversations, short talks and reflections about how we can live from rest in a world full of busyness and distraction. We created the Live From Rest app because we needed it, and we think you might need it too. So if you haven't done so already, do make sure that you go to the App Store or to Play Store and download it today. Discover meditation rooted in the way of Jesus and a life of peace with freedom from anxiety, worry, and strife. Today I am with my son Joshua. Hello Joshua.
Hey guys.
We have met up today in Birmingham for some time together and we decided to do a podcast. So for the sound buffs amongst you, I'm afraid we are using an iPhone today rather than one of the fancy mics that we usually use. So I do apologise for the poorer quality than usual, but I hope you won't mind. Anyway, we were chatting, weren't we, Josh, over breakfast this morning, and the subject of Dallas Willard came up. Tell us about what you told me about Dallas.
Yeah, Dallas Willard was once asked, if you could describe Jesus with one word, how would you describe him? Having read the Gospels over and over again, having studied his life, having practiced his ways, and Willard replied with the word relax. And I would have sort of thought the first words that come to mind are ones of kind of majesty and, you know, words that sort of declare who he is and his sovereignty. But that word encapsulates everything that I think Jesus' ministry was about. You know, the unforced rhythms of grace. And it's a real challenge and a real inspiration to think that's the life that we're called into.
Yeah. And I think that word fits. I've been thinking about that, and I think there's lots of other words that you can use to describe Jesus. But relaxed actually fits. As you say, those other words do fit under that banner. And I was reflecting on what word would we use for ourselves. What word would we use for most of the people that we see around us? And I thought frantic. Or what else? Stressed
out, worried, busy.
Yeah. So we were on a train today, and I saw there was a crowded train, and I was watching this man playing on his phone, and my head was spinning really just watching the game that he was playing. I could not seriously believe the speed with which he was playing, and I could see his screen, and it was just you couldn't believe the speed of the action on the screen. That was mind-blowing in itself. That reminded me of being on an underground train not long ago, and I saw this young lady who was on her phone. I was just sitting by her, I couldn't help see what she was doing, and she was visibly stressed because she was flicking from Facebook to Instagram to WhatsApp to checking her email, or I don't know what she was doing, checking the problem being that she was under London Underground. There was no internet.
Yeah.
I just thought, how many people are living their lives at such high speed, at such high stress? If you go on talking about train journeys, if you go on a train, how many people are actually not on their phone?
Yeah,
not very many.
Yeah. It's this kind of insatiable appetite that we have, and I've definitely experienced this appetite to be connected, to be connected to your data and to the web, so that you can then interact with what's going on around you in these digital worlds that we live in. And when we're not connected, we feel almost less alive because our lives are primarily lived throughout our screens.
Yeah.
So the desire to be connected to Instagram or Facebook is a desire to be alive, to feel like you have a place in the world, to feel like you have relationships, to feel like you have a voice. So when you lose data, you feel like you lose your life and you lose your place in the world.
Absolutely. That reminds me of what's important for a place that you're going to stay at, like if you're on Airbnb. And I know that one of the most important qualities of a place to stay is not whether it's got good lighting, good heating, good walks nearby. I think Wi-Fi, having Wi-Fi, whether or not you've got Wi-Fi is what most people count as a necessity for somewhere that they're going to stay, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you've got to be connected.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And I think actually Jesus talks about it very specifically. He uses different language. But in John 15, which is, the eve almost of his death, it's the final, John's kind of capturing the final moments that he has speaking to his disciples. It's these incredible chapters where he's giving them really a manifesto of how to live in his absence. Mm-hmm. They're walking through, I read a couple of commentaries saying they were perhaps walking through a vineyard at the time, and Jesus stopped to teach them. And he says to them, I am the true vine. And the idea of him standing in front of all these trees, and then commenting and saying, I am the true vine. And then calling us as his disciples to remain connected to the true vine, because there's lots of vines. There's lots of different ways of being connected. There's lots of different elements unto which we can connect and abide with. But Jesus is saying, only to me, I want you to connect, because my Father is the vine dresser. And he comes to the vine and he prunes the vine where there's fruit so that it would bear more fruit. And he's creating this beautiful image again of the garden, of the Father walking with humanity in the garden, in this uninterrupted, undisconnected relationship together, the gardener who is our Father. And that's a really powerful image for us today, because effectively what Jesus is saying is stay connected, but stay connected to the source. I have a rhythm now. I'm actually in it. Right as we're speaking, where I just every year, a couple times a year, I'll just log off social media for a couple of months. And my life is primarily, my work is focused around social media. It's where I do most of my promotion. It's where I do most of the sharing of my art. So I'm very grateful for social media. I'm able to reach thousands of people around the world that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. But I also notice within me the appetite and the habitual relationship that's created to be connected on social media. So a couple times a year, I'll just take time off it, a couple months, just to reset, recalibrate, just take focus again. And what I've noticed is every time I do it, my phone battery lasts a lot longer.
Yeah.
So when I come off social media, it'll get towards the end of the day and my phone's still charged up. When I'm on it, it gets drained so quickly. And I think there's a spiritual principle in there, because my desire to be connected drains.
Yes.
My desire to be connected to surface elements, surface relationships, surface interactions drains. Yeah. It's only when my phone is connected to the source, to the mains of the wall, that it actually gets charged up. And I use that as an image, a metaphor of my life. How often is it that I plug into the wall for 5 minutes, right? Hoping that it can just boost the battery of my soul so that I can go about the day, connecting with people and connecting with ambition and ego, whatever you want to call it, desires that I have. And it creates this exhausted way of living because you're running on fumes. So what Jesus is saying in John 15 is he's saying, abide in me. And this word abide has a level of obedience to it. It's saying remain in this place of connection, in this connection to the source who is the Father. Jesus said, I didn't do anything. My whole time on earth, I did nothing apart from the Father. Yeah. It was all in abiding with the Father, everything I did and said. So it's this manifesto, this charge to us to say, what does it look like to live a life that is connected to the source? Yep. I think that frantic nature that you talked about will slowly subside. I can testify actually to it. Yep. I can feel a deeper well of peace within me. And the problems haven't necessarily gone. It's interesting, isn't it? How you can have these problems in your life like we all go through, but they're highlighted and they're magnified by our lack of depth in connection with God. When you have that depth and connection with God, when you take time to meditate, when you take time to pray, when you take time to be still before him, the problems don't magically disappear, but the well becomes deeper and the capacity that you have to approach them becomes wider.
The well becomes deeper, but actually also you come at your issues with a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
When you spend time with God and you meditate on who he is and you meditate on eternity, then these light and momentary troubles that we
Yeah.
have are as nothing compared to the glory that awaits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just a final thought on the John 15 scripture. He says that the vine dresser, the gardener, when approaching the vine, if he sees fruit, he prunes it back.
Yeah.
And so a challenge I've had in my life is if I'm not connected to the source, if I'm not connected to God,
Yeah.
if I'm not taking time to find myself in him, the fruit in my life I will take credit for, and I will do everything I can to maintain and uphold. If you have a rhythm and a lifestyle of being abiding in prayer and meditation and solitude with Christ, when you see good things happening in your life, you won't be afraid. You won't be frantic if there's a dip. You won't feel panicked if, your sales aren't as good as they were this month, or if you don't get that promotion, because you're abiding in a whole different reality, in a different sphere, in the kingdom, where less sometimes is more. Right? Where there's lack in your life, sometimes it's because God is stripping back so that he can produce more. And that kind of spiritual framework is absent unless you have a discipline in abiding with Jesus and waking up in the morning. And this is an encouragement to everyone listening. Please do this. If you want to do one change tomorrow, charge your phones downstairs, not near your bedroom. And if you don't start work until 9 o'clock, or if you don't have to leave the house until 8 a.m. for work, don't look at your phone until that time. Billions of human beings have been able to do that for centuries. They haven't needed their phone before, a certain time of the day. Wake up and have some original thinking, have some prayer, have some time with your own thoughts and with the thoughts of God before you get ambushed with. And this is true. Every single minute, 500,000 statuses are updated, 136,000 photos are uploaded. Wow. That's happening every minute. So get some time in the morning and in the night to reset, recalibrate, and connect to the mains.
Yeah. Josh, just say what you said to me about where your finger went, where your thumb went after you had deleted.
Yeah, I deleted Instagram and I kept opening my phone and automatically my finger would go to the top right-hand side of my screen because that's where Instagram was. So now I've replaced it with my notes.
Oh, well done.
So when I click on the notes, it's an encouragement to write and to process and reflect.
There you go. You said one final thought. Actually, this is alongside what you were saying. When we abide in Jesus, when we abide in the vine, what does he actually promise? He promises, and you will bear much fruit.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge, isn't it?
It really is.
Because so much of our lives is focused on what we're going to achieve. And to achieve, we focus on what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Jesus says, abide in me, rest in me, and then you will bear fruit. And so what does the branch actually do to bear fruit? Well, it just sits there, grafted into the true vine and allows the sap to come through it.
Yeah.
And then the fruit will be born. That doesn't mean we don't have to do anything, but we whatever we do out of a place of abiding. And as you say, there will be times of pruning as well, which is a good sign, even though it may alarm us that the fruit may dip, as you were saying.
Yeah.
It's a great challenge.
Yeah. There's a great teacher, Pete Scazzaro, who teaches a lot in spiritual disciplines. And he says one way to just bring it into your life is to create daily deserts. Jesus went out to the wilderness to meet with God. He says, even in the busiest of schedules, set an alarm on your phone at 9 a.m., 12, and 6. And a little alarm goes off at 3 points throughout the day. Take it as a moment to abide, to pray at your desk. Maybe it's around the kids. Maybe it's, going for a walk, whatever you're doing. It's a space of nothingness amongst the busyness that you can have with God to put everything else into context and everything else in its place.
Yeah, we've been talking about the dangers of phones in a way, but that's one great thing you can do with your phone is set an alarm. Set alarms for various disciplines, like you were saying, for a time of stillness, time of desert. Actually, one alarm that I've got that goes off my phone at 6 p.m. every night is gratitude. So a few weeks ago, we were talking about gratitude is a path to joy. And I don't know how many of you are practicing gratitude. I so encourage it. I'm using an alarm just to remind me to take a few moments to be grateful, but also let's use our alarms to help us to be still.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's good for now. Thank you so much for listening. I do hope that you are familiar with our app, Live From Rest. If you haven't downloaded it, please do. It is a great resource for abiding in God. And one little tip for people that are already using it that you may not have thought of is that quite often I know people are listening to timed meditations. Why not just time your meditation for 1 or 2 minutes, or even 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes longer than the time of meditation? So have a time of concentrating on the passage that you're meditating on, and then just have a period of 5 minutes or more simply being still. So thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. We love doing this, and we look forward to being with you again soon. Thank you very much, and thank you, Josh, for being with me.
Pleasure.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.